The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Carl Galp, welcome back to the Big H Podcast.
Mike, thanks for having me.
It's great. I hope you're having a good summer.
It's gone by quick, as usual.
As usual. Now, this is going to air on the 20th. 21st, we have a summer day, I believe. Are you going to go to that?
Nope, I took care of mine on July 7th.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So is your classroom all ready?
Yep, it's ready to go. I think copies are coming in. So
Mary Phillips, I used to teach with her at the elementary level, and her husband was a middle school social studies teacher. And she's like, oh, yeah, you getting your classroom ready. It's like, here's this stapler. Move the stapler over there. She's joking. Yeah. And then you go into an elementary room like mine. You got to put names up on the wall. You got to put charts. Yeah. I'm not saying we got it rougher, but.
Yeah, you got a lot more visual stuff that I think you need to have for the little ones.
It is. And the little ones are great. The older ones are better. And today we want to talk about these little and bigger students, talking about the bell-to-bell cell phone ban that's going to be going through the school district this year for the 25-26 school year. We want to talk a little bit about the rationale, the implementation, the consequences, and how this might play out on a day-to-day basis. We're going to discuss one of the foremost proponents of cell phone banning in schools and the use of devices in society in general by Mr. Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a book that's been read by many of our administrators. Kristen Polini brought it up to me and gave me a little bit of a summary. And then you had also forwarded me a podcast on it when he was on with Dr. Jordan Peterson. But before we get into Jonathan Haidt and some of that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the high school and your experiences with cell phones and how it's been the last 4 or 5 years in the classroom, what you've experienced socially with the students when they're outside in the hallways and in the lunchrooms and whatnot. What's been your experience?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to mention beforehand is this is not exclusively a Hilton thing. This is actually coming from the governor's office, which is really interesting. But for my last 4 or 5 years, I would say in the hallways, usually I just see the tops of kids' heads because they have their faces in their phones almost the whole time they're in the hallway. There are some exceptions to that. And we have been given some leeway in the past as to how individual teachers wanted to handle phones in their classrooms. For a while, it was off and away, and then it was very discretionary at other points. I have tried to be consistent with that. So we have these little caddies, and my population is a little bit different now than a lot of other teachers in the high school. I'm really fortunate to be teaching the upper level courses. But with my juniors, I would have a caddy up in front of the classroom that's numbered, and I would put a calculator in there. And then up above that on my whiteboard was a spreadsheet that had each of the students' names along with a number. And when they would walk into the classroom, they would drop off their phone and pick up a calculator. Mm-hmm. So they were always ready to go. And some students would try to bypass that. And that's the part where consistency is really important with this. If I don't check up on it, then the kids will squirrel them away in their bags, or they try and keep an earbud in their ear. But for the most part, they're pretty good about it. Now with seniors, I treated them a lot differently. So this is AP and IB chemistry. I basically said to them that you're in a college level course. You have to you have to kind of police yourself. If you're going to have your face in your phone all the time, you're almost 18, you're going to be going off to college. You got to figure it out. So kind of they're more mature and let them do that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year with seniors. I'm looking forward to it in general.
Now, I watched Governor Hochul's press conference in May when she was announcing what she had planned to do. And at that time, there were 5 states that had initiated a bell-to-bell ban. I was watching a news program the other day, and it was up to 31 states that are now doing some type of bell-to-bell ban. So it is sweeping across the country. I think that many people are realizing that distraction-free learning is something that should be instituted. And as schools, we should be doing something to promote that distraction-free.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see, and I know you work with maybe some of those learners that are more highly motivated. How do you see distractions propping up because of the deviceage control on their minds?
Inability to focus is a big thing. And to your point about 31 states now, I think the reason that is happening is because the negative effects are just too obvious to ignore anymore. With kids, I mean, when we were in school, I didn't know what anxiety was. I'd never heard that word before. And now kids say, "Oh, I'm really anxious. I can't do this. I can't do that." They don't have those coping mechanisms. So back to your question, remind me what.
No, you're pressing me on this. I think I was talking about distraction in learning and how that use of device. Like, let's say, for example, I'll use an example. You have kids that use their caddies,
Yep.
and then they go back to their desks. Okay, they don't have the device with them at their desk.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen over the course of time, and I'm not trying to ask a leading question, the decrease in the attention span of the students because of that reliance on the cell phone, the TikTok, the Instagram, where they're getting that boom, 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 and then they're sitting for maybe a mini lesson or a lesson that's longer than 8 minutes and they have to pay attention. Has that been affected in your mind or not so much?
I have found that I have had students tell me that they like the structure in my classroom where they don't have their phones. They feel like they can focus more on the work. And the way that I have my classroom set up are in little pods. So there'll be 4 students to a table and they face each other. And I have found that without their phones, they actually talk to one another. They interact, even if they don't know each other really well. But if they all have their phones, like let's say I give them some work time and I'll say, "Hey, can I have my phone to listen to music?" Sometimes I'll say yes. But then the phone is next to them. And even if the sound isn't on, if it's just vibration only, they see that notification pop up and their attention is lost. Whereas at the beginning part of my career, when we didn't really have the smartphones, we didn't see that. Kids were kind of on point the whole time.
Now, I want to circle back a little bit to last year when students had full usage of their cell phone during the school day. And let's say they're in lunch or in the hallway. Would they be on TikTok and Instagram?
Oh, yeah. And TikTok, Snapchat's a big one, right? They'll just have their phone and just take a picture of the top of their head and the ceiling and some caption to keep their streak alive, right? And I sound like an old man when I start talking about it because I'm not into it, but they do it all the time. "Oh, how come you didn't comment on my story? How come you didn't da-da-da-da-da-da? How come you left me on red?" I hear that from kids all the time.
What does that mean? Leave me on red. You didn't check what I posted?
So they'll see that the post has been made, but they won't reply to it. And they need that reply because, like we were talking before we came on air about that instant dopamine, that quick dopamine.
Well, because at the elementary level, kids do have smartwatches. Some of them do have cell phones. And I assume that in 6th grade, the older, it's probably harder for the teachers to police. I don't like to use that word with the cell phones. 3rd graders, you hear a phone go off and they'll, and I'll go turn my phone off. And many of them are very respectful about putting their phone in their book bag and keeping it in their book bag all day. And um, the watches, pretty much you just left them on their wrists or whatever.
Yeah.
And when it came to state testing or whatever, I had to collect all the devices, smartwatches, iPads, and the phones. Um, and basically, the rule for elementary was you can use your phone once you get on the school bus. But once you get off the school bus, and we're going to talk about what it's going to look like this year, phone goes away on and off during the day or whatever it was said, and we shouldn't see it. So there were some teachers that were heavily enforced 100% with that. If I was or were on bus duty, and a student was coming out on the bus loop and they had their phone, I would say, please put that away until you get on your school bus. Okay, maybe that's being a little too militant, but I wanted them to be like, I want you to look forward when you're walking so you don't bump
Make
into
eye
somebody.
contact.
Right. That's getting off a little bit on a tangent, but I think this is going to affect K-12. So getting it to look at both the elementary, middle, and high school. Interesting that the podcast that you had sent me with Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's a clinical psychologist, and he had Jonathan Haidt, who's a social psychologist who deals more in morality. And Haidt, excuse me, has written several books. Jordan Peterson has been very, very popular in Canada and speaking in the States. And Jordan Peterson brought up the dopamine issue. And I want to let you have an example of what you've seen at the high school. And it was about slow dopamine versus fast dopamine. That rush that you get, the dopamine rush. Yeah. And there's some in slow, and then there's some in fast. Can you speak to the fast dopamine that is experienced by the use of cell phones?
Yeah, even for someone like me, if I sit down and I like to watch YouTube videos, like your podcast, and
good plug.
Sometimes I get into YouTube Shorts, and you just, what do they call it? Doom scrolling or death scrolling. You're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then when you're done, you feel awful because that dopamine, that quick dopamine, is shut down. And the kids do that all the time. They'll call themselves screenagers, and they're not lying because they've got their faces in these phones all the time, all hours of the night. And we will probably get to that with Haidt's analysis. Slow dopamine, I look at that like maybe it's a project in their chemistry class. Let's say it's their individual investigation, their IA. They have to do a month-long laboratory investigation. And maybe they don't get the sense of accomplishment until they're all done with it, that completion. So that would be maybe an example of that slow dopamine.
And to ducktail on that, or Peterson also talked about with Haidt that when kids are those screenagers and they're scrolling, many of the TikTok videos or the videos that they're watching are, the average time is like 8 seconds. Right. So you get a teen that can scroll 6, 7, 8 videos in a minute. And then, so that's that fast dopamine, boom, boom, boom. And then they go into, let's say, a classroom. Let's say a 50-minute classroom where the teacher is going to either lecture. Now, science, a lot of that is you're doing labs and things like that. But let's say it's an English class or a social studies class or whatever, and the teacher needs their complete attention to give the instruction first. And this happens at the elementary level. These students, I can say for firsthand, have difficulty if you have to capture them in the first 8 seconds. And then Peterson or Haidt used the 8-minute length that you're going to have them for. It's not very long.
It's not. And I have modified my teaching over the years also, whereas early in my career, I might lecture for 30, 40 minutes. Now I have tried to really decrease that, maybe 10, 15 minutes, make it a little mini lesson, and then give them time to work. and then try to build up their stamina. I noticed the stamina, intellectual stamina, really decreased right after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have it, but now I'm starting to see the students can handle more and more of that. They're doing better with it. But you're right, absolutely. If you drone on and on, you're going to lose the kids.
100%. And I think we're going to be playing ping pong here. When I first started at the elementary level in 1919, 1999, and I'll use math for example. And let's say I was teaching how to figure out the greatest common factor.
Mm-hmm.
Kids would open up their math notebook. I would show an example. They would take notes,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would explain the process. They would write down the process. So it's going through their skull, into their pen, and onto their notepad. And this lesson would end up being 30 minutes long. My philosophy at the time was, well, you see me do it. We're going to do an example together, and now you have this notebook to refer back to when you go to do it independently. That took me 30 to 40 minutes on an instructional day, and then they would have independent work either in class or for homework.
Right.
Nowadays, it's, boy, I can do this either verbally myself or use Brain Pop Jr.
Mm-hmm.
with Annie and Moby. You don't know these characters.
I do.
Okay.
I know.
And they can come up with a little 5-minute movie.
Yep.
And the kids, you watch them, and they're just like, they're just watching and listening. And I can put it out on Google Classroom, and then there's an easy quiz and a hard quiz. But there's not as much interaction between teacher student.
Yep.
But that, I think that's an example of fast dopamine. You've got the video that intrigues them right away. Yep. It's not Mr. High's going on for 25 minutes, and I have to write down everything that he says. I can just, by osmosis, and I tease him about that.
Yeah.
Take in the information, then be able to do it. But that's kind of, the mini lesson is huge now with kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that was kind of a big diatribe from me, but
nope, that's good.
Now, let's go to Hilton and how this ban will affect our Hilton students. Okay. And I think we also have to talk about staff, because this is going to be a change agent for staff members as well, because everyone has that thing in their palm. Explain a little bit about how the belt-to-belt ban is going to work at the high school.
So what the high school, Dr. Green has already kind of pushed out is about a 7-minute video. So a quick video that was sent to all parents, and I think students have viewed it also, explaining what the policy is going to be. Each student is going to be issued what is called, they call it a cadet honor pouch. So it's just a little like pencil or pen bag that you can zip up, and you can put your phone in there. And then that goes into your bag. You get off the bus before you get into the building, or when you get out of your car, you get into the building and your phone is off. I think they would prefer it to be off, but at least silenced. And it stays there for the entirety of the day. Do you want to talk about violations or?
Not yet.
Okay.
I just a quick question. The pouch stays on their backpack, or does it stay in the main office of the high school?
In their backpack. So they're allowed to keep the device on them. It just has to be off. But they have to be careful, because if a teacher hears it vibrating or a tone go off, that is a violation.
Okay.
And that has consequences.
And from what I've read and seen is, before they come in the school, it's got to be off. Earbuds are off.
Yeah, the earbuds, that's going to be a tricky one, because female students, they'll wear their hair over their ears and try and sneak it.
Well, and boys. There are boys with floppy hairs and stuff like
that. Yeah, some of them, right, yeah. But really, it has really been, historically for me, it's the girls that try and sneak the earbuds.
Now, at Merton Williams, are they going to be the same?
I assume so.
Okay. And, I mean, what I can say for elementary, well, I guess I get into the violations, but it's pretty much that same thing.
There's got to be fewer phones, though, in the elementary level.
100%. And I think over the course of the years, the younger the grades, the more phones has increased
Mm.
over. And I haven't personally experienced a huge problem with cell phones. This when you're dealing with younger kids, they usually will come up and say, "Can I use my phone on recess?" And to me, that's a hard no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, you can't. Can I take my phone to play a game at lunch? No, we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I think for the majority of this podcast, we're going to be addressing high school and how that's going to be. So you did bring up the consequences. Let's go
Yeah.
into a little bit about how that's going to work.
First violation, I believe, is a confiscation of the device. And this is all in the student handbook and also the shared expectations for all staff in the high school, which has been shared out. I think the phone, the device, so earbud, smartwatch, phone, iPad, I think it includes that as well. Some kids like to use those, will be confiscated and turned over to the appropriate administrator. I believe there's a contact home about the violation, and then the student is assigned an after-school detention either that day or the following day.
That's on the first violation.
First violation. After that, the language in there, I believe, is just escalating consequences, and I don't recall the specifics of what that would be. And I also don't believe that there's a reset. So, like, let's say at the end of a quarter, your number of violations doesn't clock back to zero. I think it's cumulative. So the first few days of school are really going to be interesting. I'm personally looking forward to it. But like you mentioned earlier, it's being a good role model as a teacher. So that's really going to be key, is a consistency between the teachers. If teachers are buying in and they're doing it, then I think it can be successful. And part of that, I think, this is just my own opinion, this isn't the district's, but I don't think teachers should be using their phones during the day either. I think they should be gone. Set the example. You shouldn't be checking your Facebook page or shopping or doing whatever you do on there. Wait till the end of the day. And I think that when the kids see us do that, they see that structure and they respond to that. I think they crave it.
I do think monkey see, monkey do. And one thing I did want to go back to, part of the information that you sent me, it said families should refrain from communicating with students during the school day, but can email their student if necessary. So that would reach the email on their Gmail, on their...
Yep, on their district issued device. That's the only one that they're allowed to use.
Okay.
And I believe that the district is also going to be supplying some corded headphones, earbuds,
Okay,
for students. So then if they are listening or watching a video in class, they can do that.
and it said in the event of a family emergency requiring communication, families can call the school and we will promptly contact the student.
Yeah, like when we were in school.
Right. And talk a little bit about the communication methods that the school has on hand already. I mean, okay, very simply, every room has a phone in it.
Correct.
A landline.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the other communication methods.
Well, we're also using Remind. So I believe parents can subscribe to that. I know for my daughter, I would get reminds frequently about band and chorus practices. So I suppose the district could implement that. They robocall as well. Other communications.
Well, I also think this year the district had purchased Remind for a couple of years, and now they might go to this system. I think it's called Parent Portal, and so I think teachers are going to have the option to use one or the other.
Yes.
The nice thing about these is that when you, as a classroom teacher in elementary, I plug in all my students' parents' numbers, both contact 1, contact 2 from Infinite Campus. Are you aware of those?
Yep.
Okay. As a parent, you are. And then if there's something that I need to send out, hey, homework tonight is read 20 minutes. Boom. It goes right to their phone. They all know that.
Right.
I can give an example when we were going through some bomb threat fiascos that one year, which turned out to be a hoax. And when,
Correct.
is, to me as a parent, that would frighten me because the whole district was affected
Hmm.
at the same time. So you were having a hard time spilling out buses to each of the school districts. You had kindergartners versus 12th graders, getting the message. But I had Remind that time, and I was able to communicate in live time with the parents,
Mm.
explaining what was going on. And then I went to, let's say, a field trip where we went to the zoo, and I was able to communicate with the parents. We're pulling into the zoo now, or we're leaving the zoo now and heading back to Hilton.
Hmm.
And that system did allow for immediate contact. And then I also believe that through our Office of Communication, which is led by Dave Yates, I believe,
Hmm.
that we do have an X page where, and he also can communicate on Infinite Campus. So there's many mechanisms where they can get out emergency information to parents.
Yes. Yeah. Which, as a parent, is nice. I definitely agree with that. That it's nice to know when your kids are going on these field trips and when they get there and things like that.
Yeah, and like that, the bomb threat or whatever happens, and the apparent initial reaction, and I understand. I want to
I
come to
want
the
to get my
school,
kid.
and I think we were talking off camera. Sometimes in emergency situations, or most of the time, you have to trust us and let us know what to do. And then when we do it, and as certain wrenches get thrown in, we do as best that we can, and then review what happened, and then revamp our plans.
Right.
Um, and thankfully, there hasn't been, too many emergencies. There are individual emergencies, I'm sure, that come up. I know, but in terms of going back to, I don't want to get too much off on a tangent with the cell phone bell to bell ban. Talk a little bit about the rationale behind it, and we don't do things just to do them. There's benefits to them.
Correct. So there, Mr. Height or Dr. Height, he has kind of laid out what some of these negative effects are. And a lot of them have to do with social interactions between children, and also the social emotional part, which I know that Hilton is huge on. We have been for several years. And so things like girls tend to be, and I'm not a psychologist. These are all anecdotal things that I have picked up kind of reading about this topic, is they kind of go after it. I call it character assassination. So they kind of bully each other that way, compare themselves to each other, and it becomes a kind of a downward spiral for them. Whereas boys, they're playing video games, and unfortunately, one of the other things that they get addicted to in some cases is they really get into the porn, which
Mm-hmm.
is not healthy for them, especially when they're trying to establish their first relationships at the high school level. So these are things that Height has noticed, and he noticed an uptick in this. I think around 2010 is when, and it's almost like a hockey stick graph. It just is really spiked up. So I think this is probably a long time in coming for the district. We're finally here. The state is here, and people are finally catching on to it.
And some of the things that he noted with girls is that the social aspect of social media is they tend to have the more depression, show signs of cutting and things like
Yes,
that.
more negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking off camera also about how they will someone will post something online about how their situation is just dire, and it might be an extreme example, and that can go viral, and other girls see that and they're like, oh, that's me, that's me, and they're seeing the worst case of it. And I think that's where we're the result of using the devices, and we're seeing that manifest in these negative behaviors.
Now, also, Jonathan, it's pronounced Height, even though his name looks like Haig.
Yeah.
Um, no, excuse me, Haidt. He noticed the cause, and he talked about the great rewiring of childhood. Can you explain a little bit about what he meant by that?
Oh,
I can help you out
yeah.
if
You
you
can
don't
help
mind,
me out with that one.
because I'm really reading your notes, the Cliff Notes, and he talked about um, the great rewiring of childhood, where children's experiences they shifted from a more independent, play-based childhood. They're out playing
Okay.
baseball,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
to one influenced by technology.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of we're aging ourselves with a lot of these conversations, but I just remember, and I've heard other people say this on your podcast, that they wouldn't come inside until the street lights came on
Mm-hmm.
if they lived in the village, or a parent would yell down the street, "Hey, it's time for dinner," and you would just find other kids in the neighborhood and you would interact with them. In the wintertime, we'd build snow forts, things like that. But there wasn't nowadays. Like if you drive through a neighborhood, I don't drive through lots of neighborhoods all the time, but I don't know that you see kids out playing as much as you used to. They'll stay inside. Like my daughter, for example, she's got her iPad, and we try to regulate that quite a bit. But she'll chat with her friends on there, so there's not a lot of face to face. But whenever we get an opportunity where we say, "Hey, you want to have a play date?" Boom, we're all over that. So we'll try to encourage that sort of thing.
And I think at the elementary level, I want to talk a little bit about the play date experience and what I've noticed, and I think I'm going to try to institute that with my parents this year, is my wife and some of the other teachers, what they do in the beginning of the year, they'll say to each parent, do I have your permission to put your phone number on a class roster? So if little Johnny wants to have a play date with little
Yep.
Ricky, the moms can call each other. That play date is so valuable to the kids because they're not playing. I'm using boys too much, maybe, but they're not playing Call of Duty and they can talk on their headsets. They're going over and they're running around and jumping in the pool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's huge for
Return
social development.
return of the play date, I guess, is what I'm.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I might try to use, and hopefully, with the blessing of the parents in my room, it would work out. Because so many times, I think a child goes home and they say, "Well, I'm having a problem with this student." Well, mom doesn't know that other student, and
Yeah.
maybe the other student is at fault, but maybe you also share some of the responsibility. But if you get to know the students in the class, you might have a better perspective as to maybe how my child can improve in this relationship, or maybe the the addition of what they're doing is creating something in the problem. And you
Yeah.
get to that by a face-to-face interaction with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes to parenting also, and that we need to try to be maybe more involved at home with our kids. Right. I mean, I get home from school, I'm tired. My daughter gets home from school, she's tired. She wants to decompress. But maybe there should be more time between a parent and their kid instead of just say, okay, you're going to go on your iPad for an hour. All right, I'll see you at dinner or something like that.
In Height, he uses the example of himself when he had a 2-year-old, and he and his wife went to dinner, I think he said, and I gave my 2-year-old the phone, and within 10 minutes she learned how to scroll and everything like that. And I'm not going to lie. I mean,
Yeah.
when I had younger children and we would go out to dinner, let's say, and you wanted the kids to act okay and you wanted to talk about your day with your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'd maybe give your child an iPad and they would be glued to that and things
Yeah.
like that.
It's difficult. It's difficult because you want your adult time, but you want to have your kids with you.
Exactly. And I think, opinion, whenever you say I think, we want to make sure that we still have that phone down, phone off, and we're having those personal conversations too.
Yeah. It's work. It's definitely work. And it not only the bell to bell thing for the kids, it's going to be an adjustment for parents also again.
Now, getting back to Haidt's book, The Mechanisms, he identified several negative consequences of that shift about the great rewiring of childhood. Talk a little bit about the social isolation and loneliness.
Oh, well, when you're not having a face-to-face conversation with someone, you can kind of go down a rabbit hole, I suppose. And these phones are sneaky in that you get either positive or negative reinforcement from the algorithm that's running in the background. So you start to see the same things over and over. And you're not learning how to problem solve. You're not learning how to talk with a friend through a problem that maybe you're having at school. So I think that's some of that isolation that he sees.
And I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts in the summertime, and I don't know which scientist it was or which psychologist. That's how Dr. Peterson talks, psychologist. Yeah. And they talked about the worst feelings that people have are the feeling of not belonging and loneliness. And those were the two adjectives used. And the age groups that are most affected are young kids and our oldest population, and that they feel the most lonely, and then also a lack of belongingness. So, it spoke to me like, not only is this good for our students, but maybe, grandma who you haven't talked to in a while or seen at the assisted living home,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Text messages is great, but a nice phone call is better.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Haidt also talked about sleep deprivation, and
I mean that's always a teenager issue, right? Sleep deprivation. But I think he mentioned in his either in his book or I've heard it from other podcasts that I listen to is, your phone should really be on airplane mode when you sleep at night. You don't need to be getting those notifications. And I hear students say, I have 5 alarms set and none of them woke me up. And this is getting off onto another tangent, but we talk about shifting the start of the school day also. And some districts are doing that. And I've had students tell me, well, that's fine. I'll just go to bed an hour later if they're going to start the school day an hour later in the day. So the sleep deprivation, again, I think that could be a parental thing where we come in and say, lights out. Like when they go away to summer camp, they have lights out at 9:30, lights out. Oh, but my homework's not done. So this gets into a whole lot of other issues too, like time management and responsibility. And the phones they have to be a huge detractor from that.
I mean, not only having the phone with them when they go to bed, I mean, there's been many studies that have said, cut your screen time off 1 hour before you go to bed. Get that blue light or whatever it is.
100%.
All right. Social comparison and perfectionism due to the social media platforms.
So I guess that's where we kind of talk about people post and they live a life that is different from yours. And it's very difficult for especially young people to compare themselves, or they try to compare themselves to those people. And it's an unfair comparison, which leads to negative emotions, I guess, and then the anxiety and the other negative emotions that we see.
And I think with girls, and they say, okay, let's say, oh, I want to be thin like that, or I want to, and they start to see these images, and it might not even be their own friends or students in their building, but other stars on the music stage or things like that. And it's just such an unrealistic thing for these kids to have to experience and try to emulate.
Yeah. And so limiting that technology hopefully will aid some of that. Now, what would really suck is if the kids don't have their phones all day and then they go home and they binge for the next 4 hours.
Which that's going to happen, I think, and I...
Yeah, for some students who go home and their parents are still at work, there won't be that kind of oversight unless it's a conversation between the student and the parent saying, now I'm going to institute a code or a time limit on whatever activity you want to do on your phone.
And I think maybe towards the end of this podcast, there are some suggestions that have been put out on the Hilton Central School District website for possible correlation between parents when the students get home or their own children, because this is going to be an all stakeholders effort: staff, administrators, yes, students, and parents.
Yep.
One of the other issues Height noticed was addiction and attention fragmentation. I think we've hit on a lot of that already.
Yeah,
what phones do.
I think so. And who knows if there's any relation or correlation to the rise of ADD and ADHD in students? Does that have to do with the phones? I don't know. I'm sure there'll be lots more studies done on this as these 31 states implement these bans.
And the thing is, you want your narrative to be proven. You can find any study out there. I caution myself when I start saying this study says this study says that, because you can find just one that'll support your narrative.
Yep. You get your confirmation bias and then you're done.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think we're just trying to speak to our experience from being inside the classroom.
Yep.
And parents ourselves. You just piqued my interest to what you were just saying about something.
The ADD or the ADHD?
Yeah. More boys are afflicted with ADD and ADHD.
Yeah.
And Peterson brought up something to Dr. Height that kind of flustered, but Height had never thought of it this way, but that ADHD medication, or Ritalin he was talking to, had one of the main things is it wanted to suppress the competitive aggression that boys are internally grown up with.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what boy it is, like they're more rough and tumble than the girls.
Yes.
And Height really was like, oh, I had never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I see it. I see it.
Like,
yeah, there's so many different avenues that these phones, I think they open up to discussion. Mm-hmm. I see it as a coach. Sometimes kids don't know how to be competitive. And I don't know if that has to do with ADD or ADHD medications or not.
And again, I don't mean to, again, this opens up to other topics, not just with cell phones. I forget what coach I was talking to, and he was coaching a female team, and he said, in my practice plan, I have built-in spots for the girls. You can go over on your phones and check out the Instagram and all that. And he said it worked pretty well, because that was their break time, and they went over and that's what they did. So
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Me neither. Also, staying along with Height's thing, he did come through with some solutions.
Yeah, I really like the solutions. So free play, like recess time. And I think PE should be like that too for kids in school. Certainly there are some instructional components in PE, and I'm not going to knock a PE because they have a very important job. But restoring that free play and that independence, limiting the smartphone use was another one of his points. And, promoting phone-free periods, and that's a school thing, and before bed. I totally agree with that stuff. And these are things that I'm not just reading them off as bullet points. These are things that I've, even before I knew about Height, my wife and I were kind of doing these things with our daughter. And we have often talked about restricting social media. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, your daughter didn't have a lot of social media in school also. And it was difficult for her. Because
everybody else had it going.
Everyone else had it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if we get more parents that buy into that and say, you're not going to have social media until you're 16 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get into those fundamental reforms. We're going to wait.
Okay. All right. Yep. Okay. But I think if we have more parents that buy into that, then people like your daughter don't feel like they're missing out, because everyone is kind of at the same level. They're at the same social interaction level. Parental involvement, we talked about that already a little bit. And open dialogue. I talk to my students about that every year. I'm pretty blunt with them about it. And I talk about how the girls, you go after each other on social media, and boys, you're looking at things that you probably shouldn't be looking at. And they kind of, they'll nod, and because that's what they're doing.
Right.
Yep.
And then Height, he proposed 4 foundational reforms to restore a healthier childhood. And I think parents pay attention to this because this goes beyond just the phone-free schools.
Yeah, I think this is a big deal. So no smartphones until you're 14. No social media before you're 16. So that's the Snapchat, TikTok, maybe, I don't know, YouTube Shorts. I don't know if people really upload stuff. I think that's more TikTok that gets put onto YouTube Shorts. Phone-free schools, we're doing that. Great. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. And then far more unsupervised play and independence. So get the kids out to a playground. I think my daughter yesterday, where the heck did they go? They went to the town park, Parma Town Park here, with a couple of her friends, and they played for an hour. Fantastic. We were fortunate enough to send our daughter off to Camp Corey for a week. And so that's no smart devices there at all. They give us a warning that if a child is found with a device, boom, they go home.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a consequence.
That's a consequence. Yep. So.
You piqued many ideas in my head. When they were talking about unsupervised play, one of the conclusions of Height was that there were 2 opposite spectrums, that in today's world, there's a heavy emphasis on supervision of children in the real world, okay, at school, or let's say out in the playground or on the backyard. But when it does come to that cell phone, parents aren't as heavily involved in the supervision, knowing what's going on, speaking to their kids, what's going on in there. It's almost like a contradictory of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's the part where, as a parent, we have to expend more effort at that end. So maybe it's just asking a question. Like, I'll ask my daughter, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? What are you watching? And just kind of peek in once in a while, even just to let the kids know that you're paying attention, I think is helpful.
Also, on Facebook, there's a Facebook page where it's high school parents can become friends. And the other day, my wife clued me into it, and one of the parents raised the question, is anyone curious about the Bell to Bell ban? And there was probably 50 comments on there. And the comments were wide-ranging. You had some that had students just entering the high school, and then you had some that were commenting that they were a associate professor in college. And there were positives and there were negatives. I would say overall, they were beneficial or good ideas about the ban. Some parents were like, well, how do I now get in touch with my kid? And some of them were like, well, I like to hear from my child during their lunchtime to see how their day's going. Maybe they have a serious situation with a child that they're not getting along with. I'd like to hear how they're doing on that particular day, what happens in the case of an emergency. And, several of the parents just said, well, think about it when you were going through school.
Yep.
We didn't grow up with a cell phone or a tablet or a Chromebook, and we were okay. I mean, our parents had to trust the school to do the right thing with the right communication, and we worked out okay.
We did. Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we didn't have the type of communication at all. Like, I guess an example would be, I'll get an email from a parent saying, hey, my student is having an issue this week because something has happened at home. Just keep an eye on them. And that's fantastic. And I think that if we as teachers also can communicate quickly back to parents, that will help ease some of that unsettledness or change. Because I know myself, when someone asks you to do a change, kind of the instant answer is, no, I don't want to change. I like what we're doing. But if we as teachers can get back to parents pretty quickly, I might be the exception to the rule with some of this. I'll email even when I get home at night. Some teachers don't. Some teachers say, at 2:15 or 3:00, whenever
My day's done, therefore my communication is done.
I'm not communicating with parents. I'm not saying either one is good or bad, but parents might help initially if we can be more communicative with parents.
And I agree. And in my podcast it's called Powwow with Polini. I highly recommend it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel while you're at it and like it with that thumbs up. She did talk about communicating with parents and that she felt that, and again, she said she delineated it or differentiated it with the age of the child. Mm-hmm. More times than not, it's almost better to have the phone conversation with the parent. Now, it has to also fit into your school day, where at elementary you do have a planning period of 45 minutes 45 minutes in which they're for planning and
right.
Handling a parental question. That's planning. And if you can use that time to call the parent and have a phone-to-phone discussion, it sometimes works. Email's great. The parent portal's also good. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, and it depends on the question. Yes. If it's like, you're telling me my child didn't do their homework, okay. The other question could be, hey, what's up with this one student? My daughter keeps coming home saying she's, pushing her in the lunch line. Well, that ups the ante where that's a phone-to-phone conversation.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out. I do like what one of his foundational reforms is the unsupervised play, but also at the elementary level, we have built-in recess on the playgrounds, 20-minute slots. Mine came out the other day. I think I go, and they set them like really good, like right after lunch. So the kids are kind of jazzed. And in elementary level, you either do recess after lunch or you do a read aloud to bring them down a little bit.
Yeah.
But there are several teachers that I work around with that in order to handle that. Boy, we're getting off a little bit from the band. They'll take their kids out right away, rain, snow, or shine, and just let them run around.
We'll get that email saying make sure they have warm clothes.
Warm clothes and hats and gloves. Otherwise, they can't go out. And unfortunately, I might have to send them to the library, or the whole class can't go out.
Yeah.
A couple more topics here before we wrap up.
Okay.
Again, how will this affect teachers and staff, do you think? Opinion or what has been stated from your administrative group?
I know there is one class in particular, our forensics class. Well, I think it's hair analysis, and they use microscopes, and they have an attachment, or the students have been using their phones to take pictures and then put in a report. So that's going to require some sort of adjustment. And I know that there were concerns from those teachers about that. Maybe a photography class also, because the cameras on these things are really, really good. And so that's probably saved the district some money too by not having to buy a lot of cameras for students. But otherwise, for teachers, I think we talked about the consistency. And it's going to be some work. I think it's going to be some conversations between teachers and their students to build that relationship, which is probably the biggest thing, is build that relationship with your students. And then being consistent early on. I don't like to say, put the hammer down early and establish that this is what we're going to do. And you could probably throw someone under the bus. You could throw the state government under the bus and say, look, it's not my rule. It's the state's rule. We're just following it. But also communicating with them what the benefits are, what's going to be good for them. Why are we doing this? So ask the why question.
And again, coming from the elementary level, I work with probably 90% of females, and a lot of them have babies and younger children. And I think, it's that I dropped them off at the sitters. Maybe they're sick or something. I think they're still going to have some way of being able to have that
Yes.
instantaneous update from a sitter or a doctor, set a doctor's appointment. But again, there are moments in the day where you can use your phone, not in the presence of students, and still set that good example. But I do believe it's going to be a learning curve, because even me and my friends that I work with, I always see their cell phone in their back pocket or carrying it when they're walking their students to class, and if you're out on the playground, and you might get a notification of an email, so I think it's going to be a big thing there.
Yeah, and I know I have heard the counter argument that teachers are adults, and we should know how to regulate ourselves with that use, and that I should be able to use my phone during the day because I am an adult. I'm not a student. So that's going to be it's going to be an adjustment. I guess we'll find out how things kind of shake out once all the kids are back in school.
And before we get to the last thing, which is the suggestions for parents, I just did find my research for the elementary level on how the bell-to-bell is going to work. First time a student's personal electronic device is seen or heard by a tone or a vibration, the child will receive a warning and the parent guardian will be contacted. I would assume most teachers would just email or send a reminder, hey, it went off. If this occurs a second time, the device will be confiscated by staff and turned into the main office. The parent or guardian will be contacted and they will be assigned a consequence.
This must be for elementary.
This is elementary. Okay. So the consequence, we don't have detention. This is something that wouldn't receive an in-school suspension. I don't know what it would be. See, so there's still some nebulous in this. Should go to my brother Dave. He wouldn't tell me the word to use.
Yeah.
The device is returned at the end of the day, so the student loses it for the end. So it kind of ramps up by each occurrence. If this occurs a third time, the device again will be confiscated. The parent guardian will be contacted and required to pick up the device, and they will be assigned a consequence. Not the parent, but the child. Now, this is where it gets a little sticky, because now you just can't give it back to the student and they go home. Mom and dad got to come in and speak to an administrator. For any subsequent incidents, a student's personal electronic device is seen or heard, a family conference may be requested where we devise a plan to determine the appropriate next steps. Mm-hmm. So in school, we have things called learning plans. This could be a learning plan for use of the device. The school doesn't want to go to this length, believe me. Yeah. Refusal to turn in the device upon request would result in an office referral and consequence. Again, the school doesn't want to go into this type of thing, but I think it needs to have documentation as to what would happen.
Yep. I think for me, what I'm going to do if I have an issue is I'm just going to call security and say, you need to come get this student. And then the confrontation is no longer between me and the student. It's between security and then administration.
Mm-hmm. And again, because the older student you get, I think the more confrontational they're going to be. You're not going to do this to me in front of my friends, or I have a right to have this, you know, and that's going to come into question too.
It is. Yep, for sure.
And really, I think what we have to circle back to is this is all from the governor, and it's about distraction-free learning. I do believe in my heart of hearts that other states that have done it, their learning has improved, their test scores have improved, their production has improved. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I see all positives from this, really.
Now, here are some suggestions. Did I send it to you?
Yep. You put it
if you want to talk about the first two, these are on the school district's website.
All right. So screen time limits. We do this with my daughter's iPad. Is we can set up a code, and there's only a certain number of apps that she has access to. And we can set a time. She goes, can I have some more time on this? And I think we can do 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, or all day. And we'll just put in the code so that she doesn't see it, because once she knows the code, then the game's up. And then she has that time, and that's it. Turning off notifications. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely going to be a good thing. Tech-free zones. Yeah, like summer camps, things like that. Encourage hobbies. I mean, it seems to me that elementary kids, they're going 6 ways from Sunday.
Well, I mean, there's so many things. There's band. There's a lot of clubs.
Mm-hmm.
There's sports. There's dance. There's cheer. There are a lot of hobbies out there. I think the best thing is just get them home and they can run around the neighborhood for a couple hours too.
Yeah,
That's a hobby. That's a
mm-hmm.
lot how we grew up, but it's that individual play that we kind of have to expose them more to and let them branch out. And
sometimes it's more work. It's like, I know where you live here, you're not really in a neighborhood.
Right.
Where I live, I'm not really in a neighborhood where there are kids running around all the time. So that requires a little more effort, like as opposed to where you grew up in the village, and even on where I grew up, outside of the village, we had a street and there were kids outside all the time.
And when I was growing up, on Gordon Avenue, it'd be like a Saturday or a Friday or whatever after school. Hey, let's play baseball. And that's when you had the landlines primarily. And I would call 10 or 12 kids. Hey, let's go meet at West Avenue. We used to call it then in Quest.
Yeah.
And we'd go down in that pit way down low in right field from Schwanke Field. And we'd play baseball for hours on end.
Yep.
Kids from other neighborhoods. It was great. I mean, I know safety is now an issue more so than ever.
Yeah.
So we also have to consider that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're just not going to send your kid walking down the street as readily as we used to.
Talk about the removing time-wasting apps.
Oh, interestingly, I've heard people say that TikTok is valuable to them, adults.
Well, I mean, if you really want to look at it, it's owned by the Chinese, and supposedly it's an app for our information. But
yeah, I could probably argue that any of these apps that we use are collecting data. I don't think it's a secret anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you talk about you talk about a topic, and then you're getting all these.
Right. Yep. You get the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Maybe Snapchat I would consider a time-wasting one, because they can group text and things like that. I know, just for me, my daughter's she's not going to have Snapchat. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Track usage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you talked a little bit about that with the time limits and the screen. And yeah, I think it might be, okay, let's see who can have the least amount of screen usage. And I think the phones do monitor that, don't
they? Do every Sunday.
Every Sunday I get it like, you have used so many hours.
Yeah.
I kind of like that one.
I've had my students in the past open that up and just have a revelation how much time they're actually spending on their phones. And some of them are dumbfounded. So I'm like, yep, I do. 7 hours a day they're on their phone.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
And that's a normal length of a school day.
Yeah.
And I think what you were interesting because you said it earlier. Are they just going to binge it once they get home, and they're just going to catch up for lost time in the school day?
Yeah. Like their phone's going to be blown up. Although maybe not, because maybe they're not getting all those notifications during the day, so there really shouldn't be that much on their phone. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as soon as 2:15 at the high school, they'll probably be racing out of the school to get their phones. Yeah.
Store and charge devices in a central location of your room, and this is interesting, outside a bedroom, so that child can't have it in their bedroom. Now, then they're going to say, well, I need to set my alarm. Well, maybe go back to the old-fashioned alarm clock.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that too. Yep.
And this is an interesting one. It's our last one before we wrap up. Create a communication plan for the family when texting during the day is unavailable.
That one I haven't really thought through very much because my
do you have
daughter's 10.
Do you have a family email? I don't for the Gmail. How would that work? Your
I don't
daughter's
know.
10, so she's young.
Yeah.
I mean, I have older children, but
Can I don't even know. Can parents right now email their younger children? Is that, I don't know. At some point I heard the email was disabled. Was that between students?
Definitely between students. I don't want to relay any information that I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I had heard that, but I'm not sure if that's a thing or not. It's going to definitely require some behavior changes.
Mm-hmm.
Communication plan for the family. I don't know. That one I don't worry about as much. I don't think about as much because if I have a problem, I'm just going to call the school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I need to get my kid out of school early today.
Yeah. Creating a family device and media plan that fits your household needs can be a proactive way to support your child's well-being and academic success. So
ultimately, that's what we want. We want the kids to be successful.
That's the bottom line, but it infringes upon their independence and their, the way they've been rewired since 2010, 2012.
Yeah.
And to reverse, is to go back in time, and it's going to be hard. And I do feel for parents. Teachers are going to have a rough go of it, administrators, but I think if we all work together, this has a real shot of making a difference.
Yeah. Especially if we're consistent with it, it's going to be more difficult for the older kids.
Mm-hmm.
But if we start the younger ones with this, and that's just kind of the expectation, then maybe we can go back a little bit.
Yeah, so my suggestion would be, older kids be in touch with your teachers. Same thing with the younger students, and be in touch with your administrators if something goes awry in your mind. And I mean, they'll talk to you. I mean, I've never had an experience with my VP who supervised me that she didn't call a parent back if they had a concern or an issue. But I guess my best thing to parents, good luck with the school year with the implementation of the bell-to-bell ban. Carl?
Yeah, try and have some trust in the process. We're not doing this to be punitive to students or parents. It's really what I hope is in their best interest going forward is when they become adults.
Well, and I have to wish you a good school year. I know it's going to be starting on September 3rd. Thank you very much.
Yep.
September 2nd is a superintendent's conference day, so no school for kids. Teachers will be there going to have meetings and department meetings, grade level meetings. And then September 3rd,
we're back at
all systems go.
40 weeks.
40 weeks, and with a bell-to-bell band starting out. Those of you that have seen down in Elise Grinnell, a graduated senior, worked on the Big H podcast for us, and I'd like to give her a nice shout out for what she did, and you can see it there with the microphone. She did a beautiful job, Elise. Thank you so much. If you like what you saw here, subscribe to this channel, turn on your notifications, and you'll be notified every time there's a new podcast up and running. Follow me on X, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at the Big H Podcast for future shows. This has been Digging Deeper with Doc with the Bell to Bell Band. Lots of alliteration there.
Lots. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Have a great school year.
You too, sir.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find